Hey everybody, it's me, Remy, the comic book poser, and I'm here today to welcome you to Out of the Poserverse. Chiefs took down them Steelers, so it's time for me to talk comics, so you can watch this on Monday. It's time to talk about the top 5-ish comics that I checked out on last week's New Comic Book Day, that if you missed out on them, you should check them out on this week's New Comic Book Day. So to see what makes the list, you'll check it out after this.
Hey, little girl, did you want to know a secret?
I got 5 on it. 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Alright, before we talk books, a couple of quick announcements as usual. Number one, I think I'm selling on Metas tonight, so come check out the bunch of bums that are assembled on Monday night over Get Yourself Some KKCR, and you can get yourself entered in some giveaways. Number two, Shop Talk is going to be live on Thursday night. Gang's going to be back together again where we talk about new books and God knows what else, since it's been a couple of weeks since we've been together. Number three, I don't know if you saw this beauty yet, but I started a TikTok account to show it off, and I picked this up on my way out of town from Wichita, Kansas on Saturday from Prairie Dog Comics, so got a great deal on this, so if you're in the Wichita area, check those cats out. But let's talk books. All right. It's been a while since I've done a top 5-ish breakdown, so you know I gotta have a quick honorable mention. Alright, your honorable mention for the week is Spider-Woman number 18 from Marvel Comics. It's written by Carla Pacheco with art by Perez and Frank Diamarta. So this kind of hops very quickly from the end of the last issue and very seamlessly connects into the Devil's Reign event that's happening in Marvel right now, that Jessica's friend was attacked at the end of the last issue and she was there to help her. This is a friend, right, who cares for her child when she's gone and knows that Jessica is Spider-Woman and might be one of two people who are not superhero-y people that know that, and then she's attacked by the Thunderbolts, because of course in the Devil's Reign event we know that, you know, Kingpin and his cronies are cracking down on the actions of superheroes throughout the town. But she ultimately gets to the bottom of things and finds that Wilson Fisk himself is directly responsible for ordering the attack on her friend. And the only reason why this book is making the top 6, aside from me, you know, being an absolute whore for loving Spider-Woman, is you get a bunch of ass-kicking panels of her throwing down with Kingpin, and we get a reveal of who the villain is going to be heading into the next arc. And I don't want to spoil it, but I think it's a throwback to Secret Invasion, and somebody might want to correct me if I'm wrong on that one. That I'm pretty good on my Spider-Woman in terms of the solo titles. I'm not too keen on my knowledge of Spider-Woman in other titles, but I think that's what it's a connection to. So if I'm wrong, correct me in the comments down below. If I'm right, then pat me on the back for actually knowing something. Coming in at number 5 from Image Comics is Phenom X number 3. This is written by John Leguizamo and a whole bunch of other folks. There's your full list of creative talent on the book. This is something that Jelly and I have been talking about when the first 2 issues came out on Shop Talk. But the premise of this story is that, you know, the main character is recently released from jail, gets picked up by a government agency, and they are trying out some kind of drugs on him, and he finds that those are drugs that give him powers to become a superhero. And in the bigger universe of the story, you find that a lot of people of color are able to take to this drug that gives them superpowers because of, like, environmental waste and, like, stuff that we, you know, allow to happen with urban decay and brownfield sites and those kinds of things. And his superpower is basically he can touch a surface and it allows his, like, skin to morph to match the toughness of that. And he's in the midst of tracking somebody down who I think has information from this government agency. And I mean, from start to finish, this is just an action-packed, huge fight scene between X-46 and people who are fleeing the scene, and you start to find out why he's been chasing this man in the suit for 2 issues now, and kind of how everything is now starting to weave together into the kind of bigger universe that's being established here. The art in this book is fantastic. I also appreciate this book because I'm a John Leguizamo fan, that I appreciate a lot of the witty dialogue. And while the script writing team is, I think, 4 different people, it's either you can hear his voice coming in some of the like corny, tacky, like Spider-Man-esque lines that we hear mid-combat, or the creative team is really trapped, or really tapped into kind of creating Leguizamo as our superhero in X-46. That I like the Pest, right? That you get a lot of corny dialogue in that adaptation of The Most Dangerous Game, and I mean, it's that meets Spider-Man, and that really starts to shine through in this one. So this has been a very interesting story. The intensity is now up at 11, knowing a couple of things that we know with some threats on the horizon, that I'm really excited for number 4. Speaking of number 4, your number 4 book of the week from AWA Upshot is Hotel Volume 2, number 2. This is by John Lees, Dalibor Talajic, and Lee Lowridge. So the premise of Hotel Volume 2 and Hotel Volume 1 are still the same. You find out that people end up at this, like, Hotel California, that they can, check out anytime they want, but they can never leave. That people who are ending up at this hotel are there because they are bad people that have done bad things, and this is kind of their personal hell that leads to its end. So our character in this single issue is a woman who is being jumped into some kind of biker gang, that she's being tasked to kill a woman who's in an upside down car that's on fire, and she flees the scene. And as she's fleeing, all of a sudden we see a hotel next exit sign, and don't exit if you see hotel with 2 L's. Don't get off there. It's bad. You might only see it if you're a bad person, but if you're a bad person, don't get off there because you're going to die. You're welcome. I just saved your life. But she has a sighting of a young woman in the woods that she threatens to kill, and I think that's the girl from book number 1, who we see that connection, but she thinks she's just seeing all kinds of stuff and kind of tripping out because of a drug, like pixie dust, angel dust kind of substance that was blown in her face before she killed someone. And then we ultimately see, as she kind of gets pulled into this otherworldly dimension, we get kind of this metaverse view of her life, where she's seeing all of the different threats, all these different universes, and maybe beginning to acknowledge that this is a punishment for her. I will say that of the 7 books that have come out in the 2 volumes so far, that this might have my favorite ending, both in terms of the setup for the end of the book and the character's reaction to her kind of realizing that she's trapped and she doesn't get the respite that she believes she does. So very excellent job. I am loving that this series is back, and I can't wait to see, in terms of the narrative of the hotel, if it threads back into the narrative of the hotel that we found out by the final issue. It was either 4 or 5 issues in the first volume. But I really liked how it wrapped up there, so I want to see if we see a connection in all of these different stories. Coming in at number 3 from Image Comics is Department of Truth. This is number, 15? And it's by James Tynion. I don't know Romero's first name, David Romero and Aditya Bidkar, the letterer. As much as I've loved this series throughout because of how different it is, this, again, might be one of my favorite issues from a series this week because of the change up in the way the story is told. So we're seeing like a debriefing transcript from the gentleman in the tinfoil hat that we meet on the first page. But we are getting more of this, like, they believed that they could, will creepy things into existence. That if they plant that idea in people's minds that, they'd be able to, the ultimate game was Lee Harvey Oswald being able to catch a UFO. And by not being specific enough in the first kind of willing an idea into existence, we get the creation of the Mothman. And I'm liking this because, again, we're getting more like transcript embedded in the art. And again, it's jumping back and forth between, an story that somebody told about them running into the Mothman. We get the transcript of the debrief, and then we're getting more art kind of displaying those things. And I like, again, how this is a change of pace. And then we get a second kind of mythical idea brought to us, and it's Inrid Cold. And right, Mothman is something that exists that, there's greater stories and conspiracies about him outside of the book. But I think Inrid Cold is something that is endogenous to the world of, I don't think I used that word right, but it's inherent to the world of the Department of Truth. And I'm liking, again, how we're seeing things kind of play in, how we're getting redacted information and all of this stuff to kind of set up the next wave of things at the end of issue 15, right? That we're still getting bits and pieces of the Woman in Red. We're still getting bits and pieces of the threats to the Department of Truth and whether or not this researcher and Lee Harvey Oswald have gone wild and too far out on their own. But I like how they keep kind of changing up the narrative style and finding new ways to engage with the art to keep you, hooked to this story. And it's a reason why I think, we really have something special in the Department of Truth. Coming in at number 2 from Mad Cave Studios is The Last Session number 2. It's by Jasmine Walls, Dozer Draws, and Micah Myers on letters. Again, there's a full review of this whole series on my website, and the link is down in the description below. But this follows a group of friends who, were playing together in a D&D campaign, and life just kind of got in the way, and they still have one final session to kind of wrap up the story to either end the campaign or move on to the next chapter. And one of the reasons why I really like this story is how the art very seamlessly helps you transition from the fantasy world of inside the game back to the reality of these folks kind of sitting around the table dealing with their issues. I also like how there are moments in character where the meta dialogue about the group and whether or not including or excluding somebody from the group is something that is kind of problematic. But I really love this series. I've read all 5 issues before they came out, and I think this is, again, a good story if you like some kind of role-playing game and can relate to playing with a group in, different transitioning phases in your life. I love how representative this book is of a broad population in terms of race, sex, gender, sexuality, all of those different things, that I think it checks a lot of different boxes that a lot of folks can see or find themselves in this title. And it's good. It's a good story. Very compelling, and I can't wait to read issue number 3 in paper, because I like the paper read more. And then there was one. out of the 30-ish books I read, this book was in the middle of the stack, and once I read it, I knew it was going to be very difficult for anything else to kind of rise to the challenge of topping this book. So your pick of the week from last week's New Comic Book Day from Image Comics is Rain #1. It's a story by Joe Hill, and the script is written by, it's adapted by David Boer. The art is Zoe Thurgood, the colors is Chris O'Halloran, and the letters is Sean Lee. So what you get from this story is that the two women on the cover know that, you know that there's a love story, and you know that something goes wrong on one fateful day as the two women were preparing to move in together in Boulder, Colorado. We see the honeydew, right? That's what they call her. Yeah. Kind of working her way around the neighborhood, seeing some of her neighbors, kind of going like, yeah, this person died here, this person died here. And we're like, what happened? All we know is that they died in the rain. And all of a sudden, her partner shows up with her mother getting prepared to move in with her. She helps the young man who is sick work his way inside, and then all of a sudden the rain happens, and you're like, oh, it's just some kind of sweet, innocent little rainstorm. And then you look at the rain and you're like, that's not rain, it's raining glass. And then we get, and everybody is just like needled to death. This, no words. Like, it's just good. I think this says it's the first of 5. So I want to see what happened, right? That this is clearly going to screw with Honeydew, especially when she has a letter from her significant other's father that she's presumably going to read in the next book or two. Maybe there's a seeking of what caused all of these things, and I don't know. It's just very, very interesting. The other thing that I really liked about this book, you get, an essay at the end of the book, like you tend to in issue #1s, and it looks like that this is from another imprint of Image, or somebody who is a collective that Image is publishing called Sizig, and they want to find new ways to kind of connect stories, so that's why they're adapting some of the work of Joe Hill. And then the other thing that is interesting is Chris Ryall, who is the editor of this book, is the one who wrote this short in the back that looks like it's going to continue to build in its own universe the way that we saw, Elysium Gardens do in Philadelphia, the way that we've seen happen in all of the Batman stories, or most of the DC stories that have been coming out recently. But the difference between this and what's happening in the DC ones is that this one's actually good. So this was a book that took me by surprise. I picked it up because of the association with Joe Hill, and was blown away by this creative team. So I'm definitely going to spend a little time digging in to see what the rest of these folks have produced in the past, because I'm very intrigued by what they have done in adapting this story. So what do you think? Are there books that I have on my list this week that you're like, no? Are there things that that I read that you want me to tell you where they would have gone on my list? If so, let me know in the comments down below. But as always, y'all, thanks for stopping by. Have a good one.
Hey, little girl, did you want to know a secret?
I got 5 on it. 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.